Hello and welcome to De-Stress with Dr. Amanda. I'm Dr. Amanda and this podcast is all about highlighting the often underestimated impact of stress on our lives and our bodies. Today I have another amazing guest and we are talking with Dr. Jessica Katanga, who is a medical doctor here in the UK. She is not only a doctor, she's also a content creator and sharing all things health and well-being, which is her specialty online. Today we had an awesome conversation. Honestly, guys, it's probably one of my favourite episodes. We spoke about the transitions in life and the stress that can come. And we gave some tips on how we kind of lower our stress levels when we're trying to do a lot of things that involve stress. And we also spoke about the journey of the Black woman as well. It was an interesting conversation that I really think you'll enjoy. So please follow along. Hi, hello, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining me on the De-Stress podcast. It's such an honor to have you here. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the listeners, to the people watching, and tell us a bit about who you are.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me on today. And hi, everybody at home listening. So my name is Dr. Jessica Katanga. I am a medical doctor in the NHS. So I'm currently F2 and I'm also a content creator on Instagram and TikTok. And I make videos about my passions, which are mental health and well-being. So I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to be having today.
Brilliant, thank you. And so yes, Jessica's big online, guys. If you're not following her already, we will definitely share at the end of the podcast where you can follow her. But you know about this podcast, it's all about we don't try to avoid stress because in life, if you're living life, if you're making changes and elevating and evolving, stress comes with that. But it's about how we can actually go through these kind of stressful periods and not let it become toxic, become something that's a bit too overwhelming. And so we talk with experts in different fields. We also talk with everyday people about how they navigate through some of the most common stressful situations. And so there are so many things that I could have brought Jessica on to talk about. I remember when I reached out to you, I was like, what would we talk about? And I literally had like about a list of 3 or 4 different things. But then I was like, you know what? I see you doing so many things. Like you said, content creator, you're an F2 doctor. And I was like, there's a lot of transitions that happen at that time. For those of you don't know, when you finish medical school in the UK, you go into your foundation years. There's foundation years 1 and 2. And during that time, every few months, you're changing jobs. And even though you think as a doctor, the jobs are, you're just being a doctor in a different place, it's like a whole new thing. Each specialty is a whole entity in itself. So imagine every few months being someone with such big responsibility in a new specialty every time and learning what's even like the abbreviations in each specialty changes. And then also, finishing university, going into such a high pressure job. And I just thought it would be really great to talk to you about those transitions in life. All of us, as we go through life, we will go through transitions. Whether it's relationships or family transitions, work transitions, hobbies and passions, and just learn yourself and how we actually transition through those and manage them. Both of us have had a lot of transitions, and so that's what we're talking about today. So Jessica, my first thing is tell us a little. You've introduced yourself, but tell us a bit more about your journey to where you are now and some of the big transitions that you've had to go through.
Okay, so in terms of how I've got to where I am now, I would say obviously there's school and everything up to A levels, but then I guess we could start the journey in medical school. So for that was 5 years of medical school plus 1 year because I intercalated and I intercalated in psychology, psychiatry, and neuroscience. So yeah, again, I'm just so passionate about the mind and well-being, how our brains work. So medical school, that was tough. I think everybody knows that medical
Yeah.
stuff. They say it's like drinking water from a hose pipe. Like it's just so much information. But yeah, I enjoyed looking back, I can say that I enjoyed it. And it's a really amazing degree and you just learn so much and it's really a privilege to be able to learn so much and then meet so many people like when you're on your placements and stuff. So I guess one school is the transition from before clinical years to then clinical years where you start working with patients more. But I really enjoyed that because I'm in the job because of people and wanting to help.
Yes.
things. And then from med school, so I was born, grew up in London, studied in London, and
Mm-hmm.
then I came up north for my foundation years because I'm on the academic foundation program. So I also do research. So there's that bit of transition between clinical and research as well that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition from med school to then now being a doctor, as you said, it's a very high pressure job. And it was also during a kind of very unique time, i.e. the pandemic.
Yes.
So it was very busy, chronically understaffed and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot. And then also getting that responsibility. So when you're a med student, you can be like, somebody could tell you like an issue and you'd be like, okay, I'll just go get the doctor to
Yes.
come sort that out. But then you realize that, okay, you're
You are the doctor.
yeah. Okay, it's me kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Transition of responsibility, I guess. So responsibility and busyness
Mm-hmm.
is a different type of busy from the studying at med school. Um, yeah, and then I guess my jobs, as you said, yeah, every 4 months we rotate.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a research block, then I was on care of the elderly, then acute medicine, then hepatobiliary surgery, then psychiatry, and now I'm on neurology. Yeah, so
That's
that,
such a lovely mix.
yeah.
Well picked. That's a really nice mix. And well, I guess so out of those transitions, what would you say was the most difficult or most stressful one for you? Um, I won't guess. I have a guess. I'm gonna guess. I guess in my head which one I think it is. But tell me, like, which ones did you find, yeah, the most stressful, the most difficult for you?
Um, Um, so I think the hardest transition is the transition that I'm making now, which
Hmm.
is going from being a full-time doctor to moving into more full-time content creation.
Okay.
So at the moment, I'm having to balance the two because I'm a
Hmm.
full-time doctor and then I also make content online. But I did the MSRA, the exam for my specialty training. I thought I was going to go straight into psychiatry,
Hmm.
but then I realized that I feel a bit burnt out and things like
Hmm.
that. And my content and things are picking up and opportunities are opening. So I want to kind of explore that for a year. So I would say that that is quite hard because of the time pressures, because of
Yes.
the uniqueness of it. And because I feel like as now a content creator or like an entrepreneur, your fingers have to be in so many different pots. So one day
Hmm.
you're editing, the other day you're talking to companies, the other day you're negotiating brand deals and stuff. Another day you're editing. So I think that is the most difficult transition. And it's also because it's an uncertain path with
Hmm.
the being a doctor. Okay, so med school to being a doctor, it was hard, but you're in the same boat as so many other final year
Yes.
students and
Hmm.
other F1s and F2s. So it's like you can, even though they might be trauma bonds, you can bond with your colleagues and things. But
Hmm.
now it's like I'm going off by myself to do something,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's interesting because so I was going to guess that you're going to say the hardest transition was going from, because living in London, where you grew up, it's your home, to moving all the way up north, where it's a very different pace of life and, less familiar, whilst also doing quite a high pressure job. But I hear what you're saying about that familiarity. Like the road of a doctor has been tread before. It is like there's always nuances. Working in a pandemic has not been done before for, I would say, all the doctors out there. No one's really done that before. And but it has been tread before in terms of this is the journey. You can talk to people that are ahead of you that has gone through F1, F2, who have done psychiatry. They can talk to you about different things. Whereas content creation, it's like the polar opposites in terms of doctor is like a very ancient career. Content creation is a very modern career, and finding the space for both, I can imagine just how difficult or stressful that transition can be. So my question is then, so at the moment, because you're in this transition right now, right? What would you say that your day-to-day stress levels are like? If you're going to give yourself like a scale of 1 to 10, I realize that this will fluctuate depending on the different tasks that you're doing. But if you were going to say, as my general state, so like, maybe not when I'm sending that like email and negotiating prices, but like generally on a day where I'm off, where do you feel like your stress is kind of sitting?
Okay, on a day that I'm off,
Hmm.
I think I'm a pretty chill person. Um, so I'm a chill person, but then everything is always at the back of my mind.
Hmm.
So maybe I want to say 6 or 7.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I ask that is because stress can be good in the moment. So say you're in hospital and you've carrying the crash bleep and a cardiac arrest happens and you've got to get there quickly and act quickly. Stress can actually heighten your senses, heighten your awareness. It works well then. That's when we need it. Stress also might be good when you have a deadline of a brand partnership that you need to get out and it pushes you to be able to edit really quick. It can be good in those situations. But the reason why I ask what it's like when you're on a day off is because when you carry that stress outside of that, that's when you can start getting into that toxic stress. And so the fact that you're saying that, usually you're a more chill, relaxed person, but there's still a lot of things in the back of your mind that you would say that you're around a 6. What things do you do to make sure that those stress levels don't follow you through to that off time? And are there any things that you might do differently or you might want to change? Um, whilst you have a little think, I can like just give a bit of an example of myself. So I was really struggling before of having like this constant stress and like constant things in my mind, even when I was away from things, even when like things were in the future and I should be switching off, it was just always with me. And so one thing that I found really useful for me is to like brain dump. So I would find it difficult to sleep if I had a lot of things on my mind, because there's so many tasks that you're doing when you're like transitioning through lots of different like parts to your life. And so before I go to bed, I don't do it every night, but especially when my brain's a bit heavy, I will just write it all down. It might just be bullet points, like a to-do list of everything that I think I have to do in my life ever, but then I sleep better. So is there anything you found that helps to bring your levels from, oh, busy day in the hospital or, oh, busy day content creating, to bringing it back down so you're not in this constant chronic stress?
So yeah, no, I love what you talked about in terms of stress and performance. And I think there's that curve, isn't there? That
Mm.
like amount of anxiety and stress that you have, to
Yes.
a point, improve your performance, but then more than it's actually detrimental. So, in terms of you know, I mean, I guess managing stress is important for two reasons. One, because we deserve to live very restful, relaxed lives. It's not go, go, go all the time. And two, you know, um, even for productivity, if you want to be your best and you want to achieve your full potential, rest is part of that. Rest is
Yes.
productive. So I think the way that I make sure to keep my stress levels down as much as possible is eating well,
Hmm.
um, a plant-based balanced kind of meal to make sure I'm getting those correct nutrients. I make sure to exercise so I have somewhere to expend that energy and just feel good and get those endorphins. Um, I carve out time in the week for, just fun activities and just
Hmm.
me time kind of thing. I have a resolution this year that like every month I'm going to get a massage. Um,
Yes.
and I know one of your episodes with the massage therapist, so
Yes.
that's very interesting.
It's an
um,
essential, not just luxury, guys.
it really is. All of this stuff is essential. And I talk to my family and friends, like when
Hmm.
everything in my head is getting too much, then I may talk it out. So as I said, with family and friends, with a professional. So
Yes.
I go to therapy.
Hmm.
And then I also, yeah, love writing things down and
Hmm.
day to day, like my productivity hacks and how I may be really productive is by writing lists. And yeah, brain dumping. I do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The list, the writing things, the pen and paper. I have upgraded sometimes. I sometimes use my iPad and the pen, but a piece of pen and paper for me just helps to order things. Because sometimes when it's all in that mind, we have billions of thoughts a day. And if we leave them just as thoughts, errors are going to be made. Imagine doing a billion processes a day, there are going to be errors. And so getting them out of your mind and making a system for them really helps. Um, with each podcast, I always try and find a little segment or like a soundbite to advertise the podcast. And what you just said then about you deserve it, the two reasons why you should manage stress, because you deserve to live a restful and peaceful life. Absolutely. You deserve it. You're completely right. And sometimes I think we forget that, you know, when you're kind of getting lost in the to-do list or the responsibilities, you forget about that you do deserve that. So thank you for sharing that. Now, what I hear a lot of what you're saying that you do is it takes planning, because I know that me, when I'm feeling stressed, the first thing that I go to isn't often a healthy meal, you know, if I feel like there's no time. But to make sure that you're eating well, you've got to make sure you bought the right things. You've got to make sure that you're to exercise, you've got to make sure that you've got the gym membership or that you've got the, you know what I mean? You've got to do some planning. And so it does take intentionality for you. So people that are watching and like watching, oh, Dr. Jessica, she's just, you know, she's doing so much. Look at how many followers she has and all these amazing content. And she's out here doing work and she's blah, 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 blah. It doesn't just come like that. It's intentionality, and to be able to do that and not just burn out is what's so important. And that's what, and I love that's what you said about you thought about going into straight into training, but you decided that, you know, thinking about burnout as well, that you might not do that straight away now. And taking that decision is a really brave one, because I think a lot of the time people, especially in our professions, you can be told, like, dictated to what you should be doing next. Um, but the fact that you're able to recognize and think and plan for your stress as well, like, I don't need this one right now. I don't need to burn out right now. That's something, you know, to go off the track, to make sure that you're not just burning yourself out is really important. Um, my question then is, with all of this, do you notice at times, how do you know, you talk about this productivity curve, and like if you're at a one, I think it has four numbers if I remember correctly. At a one, you're not very stressed, and you're not that productive. Like, you're doing what you need to do, but you're not like firing it all, you're not like just, you know, firing all cylinders and just bashing things out. Then number two is where your stress is high, but your productivity is high. You're at a good level. Number three is where your stress is still high, but your productivity is starting to wane a little bit. And usually at that point, you need to think, oh, okay, what's happening? How can I get back? But then if you let it continue, you don't address things when you're at a three, you can get to a four where your stress is way too high and your productivity has now gone down. You're burnt out is a number four. And so how do you recognize in yourself? Have you gotten to the point, first of all, first question, have you gotten to the point where you're at a three, or at a four? And how do you recognize when you're at a three that you need to dial things back? Have you noticed things in yourself?
So yeah, I've definitely got it through them fours. And yeah, how do I recognize when I'm at a three or a four? It will be, okay, let me think.
It's a good question, guys, because this knowing this can often help you to backtrack. Like, whoa, because sometimes we don't recognize until we are at the four and we're like on the floor. But if you can find yourself at a three and you can think, what are my telltale signs? You can often like stop that toxic stress before it gets there. And so
Yeah,
it's a good question. It's a good one to think about, everyone.
it is a good one. And self-awareness is key, isn't it? Instead of just
Mm-hmm.
going through life. And that's why you can't be so busy, 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 because you don't have that time to think. And then before you know it, you're at the four.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when do I notice that I'm at a three? Probably when those things start slipping. So I'll look around my bedroom and it's looking messy, or I'll see that when was the last time I actually cooked something properly, or when was the last time that I did something for me, or like when was it when I've missed gym for like a week, for example, I can tell that, oh, I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
performing at my best self. And also because I journal,
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes it's retrospectively that you recognize that you was
Yes.
low. And then also, yeah, I guess maybe it's just how do you feel when you go to bed? How do I feel when I go to bed at night? Do I feel
Hmm.
like, oh, that was a nice day, or oh, I did this, or do I feel anxious and all over the place and
Hmm.
things like that? So yeah.
Yeah, you're similar to me then, because when I am getting to a three, I don't, it's something that I'm trying so hard to stop doing. But the first thing that goes is me. Like my nutrition, my exercise, my sleep, like everything. That's the first thing to go. And I'm like, why is that? I need to get to the point where like, oh, I'm feeling a bit stressed. And what starts to give is the other thing. Because we're not the ones that are disposable, like we're the ones that are essential to us living. But that often happens, isn't it? When you start feeling stressed, you start knocking off the things that keep you going. Um, so that's interesting because I'm like that. And sometimes I don't notice until now I've started to be able to notice it before I get to a four, but I won't notice it at three. I notice it at like 3.8.
And is it you that notices it, or is it other people around you that tell you?
It's a bit of both. You can often notice it. My mom, she says that I can be like moody.
Okay.
And if she rings me and I'm being short and moody, she's like, Amanda, are you okay? I'm like, I'm just a bit stressed at the moment. So our mom is a very good one at noticing it. And also funny enough, my daughter, she like
Oh.
picks up on things. And she'd be like, Mommy, what's the matter? Or, she'll just notice these things. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. Sorry, let me get myself together. But yeah, I'm trying to work on maybe like rather than getting to 3.8, figuring out 3.5, 3.4, even like 3.1 would be nice. But yeah, recognizing that, I think asking those questions, and that's a lot of what I've worked with my therapist.
Nice.
Because you said that you're in therapy too. Often working out like when can I start to tell things are off? And for me, a lot of the time it's nutrition. Nutrition is probably the first thing that starts to go for me. Because for me to be able to get the nutrition in that I need to like meal plan and meal prep. And yeah.
You're saying all of this, but yeah, I love your I live for your meal preps on Sunday.
Ah,
If you see, I'm always screenshotting your
yeah.
story. It's giving me like inspiration. So I thought that from the outside looking in, I feel like you have that down.
Well, this is my new system. This is why I meal prep to make sure that I'm getting it in. And if I have a week where I haven't really meal prepped, you just like if I haven't meal prepped that week, Amanda we're struggling, we're too stressed. But what from therapy for yourself. So one of the big things that I got from therapy, and I advocate so much for people going to therapy, was recognizing that self-awareness and actually find that time to sit down and talk about the week and actually like break down how I was feeling and not just like dismissing it and just moving on with it. What have you found useful from therapy for yourself, if you don't
Uh,
mind sharing?
yeah, no, of course. So the one of the reasons why I started therapy is because I knew that I was making this transition from being a doctor to a content creator type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. One thing that really stuck with me from therapy so far when we've been talking about career is that she said, well, you're already doing the thing. So I was so scared. I'm like, oh, but then what if this happens? And what if she's just like, but you're already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like, and it seems simple, but I was just like, am I? So I think it's just like, again, we can just, or maybe, we're both doctors or we're both Black women and things. We can just be so high functioning, and sometimes that can be self-critical. So we
Mm-hmm.
can be doing an amazing job, but then still not thinking that that's enough, and then that is adding to the stress and the anxiety.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to step back and appreciate what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
already and knowing that I can carry on doing it.
Yeah, that's true. And what you said about being it's a special kind of thing, working in a high pressure job like ours, a high skill job, and then also being a Black woman as well, and all of the connotations, the history that comes with that. A lot of the time, we are very high functioning, but high functioning with anxiety in the background, high functioning with so many expectations, and I sometimes have like the sense that, you carry a lot there. And so you can be so not very, you can't have, often I don't have a lot of grace for myself, is I guess how I should put it. Um, because we're a lot of us Black women, we are already doing so many excellent things, but because of our expectations of always having to be, the most amazing and just like not make mistakes and not get things wrong, we often slip into that, like, not really valuing our accomplishments, not really looking at what we are doing.
Definitely. And definitely. And what you said about the high functioning with anxiety, like as I said, my passion is mental health and well-being,
Mm-hmm.
and mostly really is for I make my content for primarily Black women, because I have found that so all races have mental health issues, but
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that with Black people, they'll see it as a personal failing rather than something that they're struggling with. So that can be neurodiverse, so ADHD or anxiety
Mm-hmm.
or depression, and they're masking it so much. And that's from expectations that we have of the strong Black woman,
Yes.
and then also the grace that we're afforded from the outside
Yeah,
world,
from
and then we internalize these things. But that's why podcasts like this is just so important to say that you deserve that rest, and that, yeah, you're doing great. Yeah, about then also taking the time to actually realize your accomplishments. So I was signed to an agency, and then it was only that I was telling my partner, and he was like, "Oh, you never told me that you got signed." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I never did," because I
mm-hmm.
just I just, that was actually a big goal that I had of mine. And then it happened and I didn't take note of it. And that's
Yeah.
sad, really.
One of the biggest questions, like not biggest, like the regular question my therapist asked me, she'd be like, "And what are you doing to celebrate that?" I'm like,
Oh.
"What? I celebrate something. That's something we do." But it is that, is it? Like, I remember because I went into therapy. You went into therapy because of the transition between like going into content creation and all of that. I went into therapy because of I was trying to figure out where to go next. It was a lot of career driven. I remember I was at the place I thought I was going to leave general practice. I was like, am I leaving out of fear because I've had like a really bad year? Am I leaving because it's the right thing to do? And I went to there with that question, and so much has changed since then, and so many different accomplishments have happened. And every time I'd be like, yeah, so just recapping the week, I'm like, yeah, so I got my diploma this week, or yeah, I got the interview, I got the job, oh, and I got this other job, and this has happened. She's like, and every time she's like, yeah, so what are you doing to celebrate? I'm like, I just told you. But it's that thing though. I think it's yeah, the expectations of just rolling with it. I think that's what you said about being this like strong Black woman. We're often just expected to just roll with the punches, and you're expected to just be able to weather any storm, and to just like, you're fine, look after everybody around you. You're a Black woman, can do it all, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen through history, you guys, you give birth like machines. You can take care of your own family and everybody else's family too. We can take away your husbands, and we can take away your fathers and stuff like that, and you're still function. And it's like this whole narrative of the Black woman has kind of followed us through. And actually there needs to be times for for softness and for peace as well. I think a lot when I think about anxiety is often fueled by fear of the future. And when you're living in the moment, it's hard to be anxious about things that are happening right now. It's usually things in the future. That's what anxiety is. And so I think because we're often looking out for so many people, or making sure that we're presenting in the right way, we're often thinking into the future so much. And that's why we have so much anxiety, because like the future, the repercussions of things, and like, what could the consequence of this be and that be? And if I present myself like this, will somebody see a weakness here? And all of that fuels this anxiety.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I love how you say that we need to have some room for softness. So we saw from our mums how to be Black women, and we saw them be strong, and
Mhm,
they were in survival mode, and they taught us how to be in survival mode because that was their only option at that time.
mhm,
Now our generation, we have that option to not only be surviving, but to
mhm,
be thriving as well. And we also realize that, as you said, it's ourselves who are the primary thing. It's us that we have to live with
mhm,
forever. Stress has real consequences on our mental and physical health. And it's either that you listen to your body now and you make those
mhm.
choices when it's still a choice, or it's that you wait till later and your body will tell you. You have to listen to your body either sooner or later,
Yeah.
and let it be sooner, and you make those changes so that you can then be happier in the long run.
Mhm. That is absolutely right. Your body, it doesn't stop talking to you. You might ignore it, but it doesn't stop talking to you. Whether that's because you just allow these stresses to come in and you live in this chronic level of stress that your cortisol levels are already always up. You start having inflammation in the body, you develop diabetes, you have a heart attack, you stroke, maybe you go into have severe anxiety, you have a breakdown, whatever it is, however it's going to manifest itself, it will. And so looking after yourself today and prioritizing yourself today, planning for those things, being intentional. And also sometimes we can guess when we're going to be stressed. It's not always these unexpected assaults that happen to us. Um like the most stressful things in life are often like, the big things. Okay, moving house, getting married, having children, changing career. Like we know that these are big stresses, and often if you take them a moment, you'll know what will stress you as well. Maybe it's when you have like a house full of people, or you know what I mean, or maybe you're an introvert and you've got like all these speaking engagements to go to, it's gonna be stressful. So why not plan it and plan what you can do for that? I've got this speaking engagement. It's gonna be stressful. So afterwards, I'm having a massage and I am telling everyone that I'm busy for the next 2 days, when in fact I have nothing to do. Like those are things that you can do. Um, but yeah, your body. That I love that your body is gonna keep talking to you. Either listen now or listen later. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that is an excellent place for us to end today's podcast. I hope it was a lot of food for thought for you. Thank you, Dr. Jessica, for coming and sharing your wisdom. And please let everybody know where they can find you online.
Yes, thank you so much. This conversation was amazing. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Dr. Jessica Katanga. So that is Dr. Jessica Katanga. Yeah.
Brilliant. And please, guys, if you're not already following, please go ahead and follow. All the best with this new transition going into full-time content creation. I'm so excited to see all the work. And guys, thank you all for listening. Again, if you want to follow along to the podcast, please subscribe. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Also, you can listen on Spotify at De-Stress with Dr. Amanda. And you can also watch along on my YouTube channel, Life with Dr. Amanda. And I'm on Instagram at the same handle as well. So I will see you all next week.